Four Corner Sports Podcast with me, Daryl Lane, and my co-host, my good friend Keith Rivas. How are you doing, Keith?
Pretty good, man. Free agency season's here. Can't complain.
NBA. So I guess we can start with the big thing we've been talking about. Paul George. Lots of people thought a couple years ago, his agent publicly put it out, everybody knew it, that he was going to go to the Lakers, going to go to the Los Angeles Lakers.
Right.
In Oklahoma City Thunder, they trade for him. And everybody's still like, he's going to the Lakers. Nobody wants to live in Oklahoma City.
Everybody laughed at the Thunder, too, and the Pacers.
And then, here we are now. He's re-signed with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think it's interesting to point out, too, he could have made more money if he just stayed in Indiana.
Right.
He lost money doing that because he lost his eligibility for the Supermax 2, I believe. And he committed to a long-term deal. It wasn't even like a one-and-one like Kevin Durant did or like we're all expecting LeBron James to do. So he cost himself money.
I think that a lot of this has to be interesting to see the Russell Westbrook effect because we've seen how Westbrook plays by himself for a season where he can put up MVP numbers and everybody loves to see how he does. And then we've also seen him surrounded by Durant and Harden in their early years, and then now Melo and Paul George in what you could say is Paul George's prime, I guess. And last year they got knocked out by Utah. So I'm really intrigued to see what Paul George saw, in this team that he didn't already get out of it last year. What do you think made him stay?
I think he likes Westbrook. Him and Westbrook, they're good friends. And I think sometimes that's all it takes. I mean, you like the people you're around. You like the people you're with. I think he has a lot of respect for Sam Presti.
Yeah.
And that was just it for him. And I also think, and Chris Mannix pointed this out a little bit when I was listening to him, a lot of it is like he's a pretty low-key dude. Like one of his hobbies is fishing with old white guys in Oklahoma. I
was just going to say that he likes the country kind of like Jimmy Butler likes a lot of country stuff. So Minnesota's a good fit for him.
Yeah. So he's from LA, he's, from Los Angeles area, but he doesn't need that. So I think that's also a big part of it.
Why do you think he did a 3-part, show on, I think it was on ESPN to talk about his free agency if he was just going to stay with the Thunder?
That's a good question. I think Paul George was just,
Was he just hyping it up? Because I think a lot of people said, oh, he's doing a show. He must be going to LA. There must be some family part of the show he's going to talk about. And he's going to team up with LeBron and we're going to take down Golden State.
Now,
midnight hits. And he doesn't even meet with the Lakers. He didn't even meet with Magic. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. That's the most thing I was surprised with. I wasn't necessarily so surprised because if you're reading the tea leaves, I guess you could sort of think that, him staying in Oklahoma City, there was a chance and it kept growing bigger and bigger, right? But the thing that shocked me the most about the whole thing was he didn't even give Magic a meeting.
Nope.
As soon as it struck midnight, 30 minutes later, here on ESPN, Paul George re-signs with Oklahoma City Thunder. Didn't even give him a chance for a meeting.
Do you think there was really a pitch that the Thunder had to use with Paul George, or just the fact that maybe he ended up being BFFs with Russell and then Sam Presti maybe getting his respect because he was the one that was willing to trade good players to get Paul George? Do you think it was just more of like a you scratch my back, I'm going to scratch yours? We tried once, let's try again kind of thing?
Yeah, a little bit. And I also think I don't know how, but he fell in love with the Oklahoma community. I think that's a really underrated part of this, even bigger than basketball. Like everybody's talking about LeBron James and basketball. A big part of it's like family, like just lifestyle. I think he doesn't mind Oklahoma. And the thing is, in Los Angeles, and people are talking about this LeBron, I kind of think the same thing too. When he goes to Los Angeles, and let's say LeBron goes there, there's a different type of spotlight on you now. It's not the same that was in Indiana when you're going to conference finals, not the same that's in Oklahoma. Lakers fans expect you to win championships. They're not there for the first round, second round. It just won't cut it. And when you play with LeBron James, the second guy always gets criticized. It's never LeBron. The second guy always gets criticized. And maybe Paul George just doesn't have that fabric in him. He's not that type of guy, and he would rather be in Oklahoma City.
That's interesting. That's a good point, though, I think, too, because to add to that, to build off of that, if LeBron did go to LA and George did as well, and Leonard did via trade or something crazy, Leonard's not the number two. You know, people would probably want George as the number two guy beneath LeBron just because he's been in talks for what's it been? It's been at least a year and a half now, because this was conversation when, like you said, when he was already with the Pacers, like Lakers were already in the conversation of wanting him. And that's a good point, because with LeBron getting older, it's only a matter of time. Either within the next couple of seasons, things will start to slip from what we've expected of him, making all these finals in a row and always, you know, ending up with just him versus the Warriors. Like it's gonna come to it could come to a steep close, and we don't know when that cliff is. I don't think it's anything that the NBA should worry about just yet, but I don't think that he would, if all of those stars are going to sign a legitimate deal with the Lakers, I don't know if it would be all short term except LeBron, just because he's older. Like Paul George, I think he would have signed for the same kind of money if his heart wasn't in Oklahoma, like you said. I think a year it probably does a lot to you after getting traded. And
the thing about Paul George, remember, too, is if you remember with Dwight Howard, when Dwight Howard got traded to the Los Angeles Lakers from the Orlando Magic, like it seems like almost a decade ago that happened. But Dwight Howard was the one when they had that super team, Steve Nash, Pau Gasol, Kobe Bryant, right? Dwight Howard was the one that was getting all the criticism, right? With Paul George in Oklahoma City, who does everybody criticize? Russell Westbrook. He shoots too much. Nobody likes him. James Harden left him. Victor Oladipo left him. Kevin Durant left him. They all got better. That's the rap on Russell Westbrook. He's an overrated MVP. They goose his rebound stats. So that's what people say about Westbrook. Carmelo Anthony, I mean, people call Carmelo Anthony a cancer. He's overrated. He's a ball hog. He's a ball stopper. He doesn't play defense. So really, Paul George is the third guy. Nobody's looking at Paul George.
Right.
He gets no criticism. Like, I don't think anybody, and he didn't play great against Utah.
And he played in elimination games. He played not so great.
After game one, when he called himself playoff P, he disappeared.
Well, I guess that's true, because even in Oklahoma City, you compare what he had to deal with in Indiana, and because he was the go-to guy, that's why he got as much flack as he did, and that's why the trade was such a big deal, because he actually had leverage. If like 2 years from now he demands a trade from the Thunder, I wouldn't say he really has as much leverage. There's no way in heck the Thunder let Russell Westbrook walk at all. Like, there's no doubt in my mind they're going to pull out all the stops for him to stay, and they're kind of stuck with Melo.
And even when Paul George was in Indiana, remember who got all the criticism when they started losing? They started deteriorating a little bit. It was Roy Hibbert, because then Roy Hibbert forgot how to play, and it was like Lance Stevenson.
Right.
So, I mean, no criticism is nice, because the LA media, they will sure come after Paul George if he disappears after calling himself playoff P.
So would you say then, are you okay though with like him choosing that, and possibly the reason being not going to LA, just like the fear of criticism and fear of dealing with that at this stage in his career? Like, can we really blame him for that? I don't think we can. But I think if you're like a really biased Lakers fan, they're like, well, what the heck? You said you were coming, or Magic said you were coming.
Personally, for me, I don't even think Paul George is that great enough to tip the scales anyway for the Lakers. I mean,
sure.
Paul George, I think people overrate him just a tad, but I don't think he's a top 10 player. I don't think he's close to being a top 10 player. But so I'm just like, Paul George, like, I mean, he's nice for the Lakers, but he's not changing life.
He's not it.
Yeah, he's not changing life. I don't even know if they have Paul George, does that guarantee they make the playoffs in the West? I mean, just Paul George, I don't know. Maybe so I think he's where he's most comfortable and where he's best suited as a complementary superstar, as a second guy.
Well, the next big decision we've got to try and figure out really is where LeBron is going. I was thinking, he would be one of the people that would announce it at midnight. The whole flying into LA and people hyping up him having dinner with Magic Johnson after he landed. And where do you think we're going to have him go? Do you really think the Lakers is where we're going to see him next season?
I think LeBron's staying in Cleveland. I think he's staying in Cleveland. I've waffled back and forth on this. At first, it was Cleveland, then it was the best basketball fit should be San Antonio because they have Pop and Kawhi, and then that all burned into flames.
Right.
Then I thought, maybe Houston. Then I thought for a while, could it be the Lakers? And now I'm back at Cleveland. I'm back in Cleveland. I think at the end of the day, like with Paul George, I think lifestyle, family, I think that's a big part of it.
Does he even have a basketball reason to stay in Cleveland? I mean, if it's just family, that Cleveland makes the most sense. But
and I will say this about Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert gets a lot of criticism, but one thing Dan Gilbert has done, he's been willing to pay for whoever LeBron has wanted, and he's basically been willing to let LeBron be best player, coach, GM, and part-time owner. So Dan Gilbert has had to swallow a lot of his ego, and he's done whatever LeBron James has wanted for the most part. So I'll give Dan Gilbert credit on that. That's
fair.
He has somebody that will do whatever, move heaven and earth for basically whatever he wants.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan Gilbert got his buddy J.R. Smith paid. Dan Gilbert got his buddy Tristan Thompson paid. Dan Gilbert traded Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love. So
true. Well, that was probably a better trade, though, looking back at how things have been. Yeah, I'm really intrigued by where James does go. I could see your argument for Cleveland working, especially, he could say, well, he's already done it once, going to Miami and coming back was kind of like his bad boy period, and now he's home, his family, he's older, his kids and whatever. But then his kid, signs up to go to school in LA. And that's kind of that for me is kind of like, why would you do that if everything is so important in Cleveland? Like, I get LA is like more publicity, and he's one of the top prospects that people are watching. And
I'll say this: I don't know how true that is that his kid is already enrolled in LA, because people said that like 3 or 4 years ago. I remember and then people where I'm from, like in Cleveland, people have said for a long time, like he's going to St. Vincent St. Mary's, which is a very good basketball high school in Akron, Ohio.
Right.
So I don't know how true that is. I think they're looking at it because, LeBron James, they look at all their options. But I don't necessarily know if, his kid is enrolled in LA. And one more thing I want to say about LeBron, and I want your feedback on this. Okay. In his mind, like lots of us on the outside, we don't think there's no way he can make it to, it was an 8th or 9th straight finals.
Yeah, I think it
was 2011. So that's how many years? 7 or
8.
Yeah, 7 or 8. So 8th or 9th right now, right?
Yeah.
He's made it every year. He's been basically the best basketball player since then. In the Eastern Conference, who's the closest guy to him in the Eastern Conference?
That could be a number of people depending on people's hot takes. I would say a healthy Kyrie Irving.
And I don't think Kyrie Irving's in LeBron James' class. So LeBron James is thinking, I'm the best player by far in the conference.
Right.
Through everything. I mean, and I know people want to say with the Celtics, if they had Kyrie and they had Gordon Hayward, they would have won the series. But you want to know what? Boston couldn't win a road game. They couldn't win a road game. And Cleveland went into their house and beat them in Game 7. So to me, Boston still has stuff to prove. It's like when people say with Golden State, Chris Paul got hurt. They had that historic cold stretch. At the end of the day, you win a Game 7 on the opposing team's home court in the conference finals. That's so hard to do. If I'm in LeBron's mind, I'm thinking I'm the best player in the world, easily the best player in the Eastern Conference. Run it back for one more year. Who's to say I can't get it done? I mean, we saw Ben Simmons is scoring 1 point in the playoff game. Joel Embiid was getting abused by Al Horford. I mean,
true. Yeah, that's a good point. I would just think that, I don't know. Does that mean that he's going to sign though, like just a 1-year deal with Cleveland, or
it'll be a 1 year if he signs? I think
1-1.
Yeah, a 1-1.
But then, like after that expires, if he chooses an option on a 1-1 the second year, if he opts out, like what does that mean? Then he's going to go to LA or go back to Miami for a honeymoon? Like,
I think that's possible. That scenario is possible. That scenario is very possible. To me, I just don't know. Like, we know Paul George isn't going there. Kawhi Leonard, that's really up in the air right now. So is he going to really go to the Los Angeles Lakers with Lonzo Ball, who can't shoot, Brandon Ingram, who's 190 pounds soaking wet, and Kyle Kuzma, and I love Kuzma. Kuzma's was a late first round draft pick. I mean, Kuzma isn't the savior now. Kuzma's probably the fourth best rookie in the NBA this year. So let's chill on Kuzma. Okay. And I will say this: you're not winning a championship if Kyle Kuzma is your second best player.
Okay.
So I think, why not? I mean, maybe if LeBron knows something, but then again, if you just run it back one more year, Klay Thompson's up, Jimmy Butler's up,
yeah,
Kevin Durant's up again because he did a 1-on-1. So,
oh my goodness, imagine that. We talk about rumors. Stephen A. Smith didn't help. When he said that, LeBron and KD had been texting about going to the Lakers. It's just like, oh, why would they do that? And then, if he ends up signing a 1-on-1 like Kevin Durant did, now we get to worry next season on top of everything else, where they're going to go.
Yeah, I agree.
I think Magic Johnson, though, through all of this, I've learned that Magic Johnson, I think, is a great hype man. He's terrific at that. Makes the fan base believe that they're going to get everybody, because the Lakers always say that almost every season, I think, oh, we're going to get a top prospect or a top draft pick or a top free agent. And then most of the time it doesn't happen that way. It's usually through trades. Because Magic is Magic, when he says it now, fans are like, well, we believe him. He said he's going to step down if he can't get anybody in the next season or two, or he's going to leave. Like, he means it. And then, God forbid LeBron doesn't go there, based off of all of Magic Johnson's promises and talking to him right after landing and everything. Like, I don't know if I feel bad or if I just feel like laughing at the diehard part of the Laker fan base.
Well, and I'd also say this.
Buying into that.
As a Lakers fan, this is what I would say. What is the problem? And I know this isn't what the Lakers are used to. What is the problem with just letting things grow organically and letting this young core build? But, like, what is the problem with that?
People get impatient. People that don't trust the process, so to speak. Because you look at what Philadelphia did, they were minus like all of the first year injuries that they had with the top picks, like Simmons and Fultz, and Embiid had injury problems too. But like they were able to actually make the playoffs with all of the commotion they had going on. And as long as the thing with Philadelphia though is health is the biggest issue. That's not an issue with the Lakers. It's really putting the right pieces around them so that they can develop. Like if Kobe Bryant had retired earlier, you could argue that the players the Lakers had before would have been just as good as a young core, as what they have now. Because D'Angelo Russell would have probably not had his development stunted as much. Jordan Clarkson would have had a much different role, with Bryant out of the picture. And now they have a young core. If they add an older LeBron, they've got to factor that into that too.
And I also think
I'm at a point where I'm okay wherever LeBron goes. I'm not throwing a fit either way. I'm just curious at this point.
Well, what does LeBron do to Lonzo Ball's development? I mean, Lonzo becomes
not a point guard, and that he can't function like that. LeBron can't play off the ball as good as he can with the ball in his hands all the time, and Lonzo, as the passing first point guard, needs the ball to do that. So then you kind of run into a conundrum. Well, do we cut Lonzo's minutes? Do we run him with the second team? Like, how would it work? Because everybody wants to see Lonzo and LeBron just team up like some magical thing like Colin Cowherd thinks is going to happen. Calling it like LeBronzo. He made like a whole song on his show a while back about it because he was really confident in that happening. But it's like, no, that wouldn't really function. And then you're going to have LeVar chew out LeBron for taking Lonzo's minutes. Say something crazy like Lonzo's better than you, and then start chemistry drama and locker room crap. And you have to really think, though, does LeBron really want that? What do you think about that? It's like if he goes to LA, chances are, in my opinion, that Lonzo is not far from being traded. Even even if that means like right before the season or a few games in. Like, I don't think Lonzo and LeBron really would work. And that only strengthens the argument you were making for staying in Cleveland, because if he can function around a funky conference and still find a way back to the finals, then you just kind of have to bank on the Warriors maybe not making it or just not being as good the next time that they meet. I don't know. But then with that, how many people want a fifth straight Cavs Warriors finals? I don't know.
I don't think the fifth straight Cavs Warriors finals is going to happen. I'll be shocked. We won't see the movie for the fifth time. I don't think that's happening.
But aside from Paul George and LeBron James, I'm curious what your thoughts are on what's actually going to happen with Kawhi Leonard. Is that someone that the Spurs actually want to trade to LA, or do they make him wait? And
I don't think they do really.
Like, what happens if they don't trade him? Does he just sit out like last year, just without an injury?
Actually, that might be illegal. Well, the Spurs are going to want some of that money back. You can't just be getting paid $25 million for free and just.
That's what I'm saying, though. But yeah.
So he has to come into camp. Else Kawhi is going to lose some money because that is pretty illegal. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. To just say, I don't want to work, but I still want you to pay me. I'm pretty sure that doesn't work. They would definitely go to court, and I think Kawhi would have a very bad argument. But here's what I will say: if I'm the Spurs, honestly, I would just do this to spite the Lakers and Kawhi Leonard for a little bit. I would not trade Kawhi Leonard to the Lakers until free agency is almost over and LeBron James has made his decision.
That's a good point. If they have that power, so that would actually, if Pop is really that bitter about sending anybody to LA because of their history and because of the rivalry that it used to be and everything, and that it's a Western Conference team instead of an Eastern team, that would be the power move. That would be like the only power move San Antonio can really pull at this point, in my opinion.
And my thing with the Spurs is people act like they don't have options. To me, if I'm Boston, I would trade because we know Kyrie doesn't know what he wants to do, actually. So Kyrie's a wild card. Gordon Hayward was hurt last year. You went to the conference finals. You were game 7, 1 game away from making it to the NBA finals without those two. Why not trade those two and give that Kings pick to the Spurs for Kawhi Leonard?
Well, people would point to that and still say, though, just the same with Hayward. We don't know what he's going to look like. How do you know you're getting the same Kawhi? How do you know you're getting like NBA Finals Kawhi?
Here's the question, though. Was Kawhi milking the injury, though, like the Spurs said he was?
Probably. But even if he was milking it, even like a small injury can still mess with the player depending on who they are. And you have to think like Kawhi's big thing is defense and being a two-way player, but defense especially. And
well, here's what I would say.
You'd have to make the Spurs buy hard on Hayward for that to happen.
But see, my thing is, let's assume Hayward comes back to what he was. I mean, Hayward's a good basketball player.
Yeah. And
it allows them to usher in an era without rebuilding, really.
Right.
And I think Kawhi Leonard's going to be fine. I don't think he's just going to forget how to play. And I think with the Celtics for them, I think the potential of them with Kawhi Leonard is greater than the potential with them and Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward. And if they end up losing Kawhi Leonard for nothing, they still have the same team that was 1 game away from making it to the NBA Finals. So what really happened?
That's true.
At some point, you have to take a risk, in my opinion. You have to take a risk.
And Danny Ainge is the kind of guy that will make that kind of a trade, I would think. Especially how he was really confident, trading before the draft in Philadelphia last season. And everyone laughed at him like, "Oh, why wouldn't you take Markelle Fultz?" And then everyone's laughing at Philadelphia because they took Markelle Fultz and traded, and they still, I guess, were going to take Jason Tatum either way. So like, I am curious to see how this Celtics team builds. They're the one team that I'm curious about in the Eastern Conference because you could say, well, maybe it was just a year where everyone had to band together because of the injuries, and when they're not injured, they're a different team. And do you think off the side of the off the topic of the Kawhi thing real quick, are the Celtics a worse team with Kyrie and Gordon back and healthy? Does that screw things up?
Well, people want playing time. Terry goes back to the bench.
Right.
The thing is, where are the minutes coming from, right?
Right.
So we have Marcus Morris, who was a very good player for them, started some playoff games for them. Let's talk about he guards LeBron second best and Kawhi Leonard. And I think Marcus Morris played very good in the playoffs. So we're talking about, where does Marcus Morris find minutes? Where does Marcus Smart find minutes? Where does Terry Rozier find minutes? Because if they run it back and they're starting Kyrie at point guard, Jaylen Brown at shooting guard, Hayward at small forward, Tatum at power forward, Al Horford at center, then who's their sixth man? Let's say their sixth man's Rozier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then let's say Smart was their sixth man in the playoffs, I would say. Then Smart goes down to being their seventh man. Then Marcus Morris goes down to being their eighth man. And then you have a guy like Aaron Baines, who I think is a very quality NBA player, and he might just be out the rotation. And then once you get into the playoffs, you're going to be playing Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kyrie Irving. These guys are all going to be playing 40-plus minutes. So the bigger question with me is not how they fit all this talent in terms of just basketball, just that is everybody going to want to accept their role?
And I think Rozier would probably be the one to buck the horse in that scenario, just because I don't know. It was really cool as a non-Celtics fan, because I thought they were going to lose to Milwaukee in the first round. I had them losing in 7 games.
So did I.
They ended up winning in 7. But Rozier really made a name for himself, you know, taking care of the Bucks, the whole thing with Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah, he was cooking Eric Bledsoe.
You know, like Rozier didn't back down from Kyrie not being in the picture. And Boston is the kind of sports town where they love people that do that. Even in football, Tom Brady was in that same scenario where he took over for Bledsoe. People loved Bledsoe, but the second that Brady stepped in and started doing good, they're like, hey, we can get around this kid. And it's amazing to me how that I almost feel like that happened with Rozier, for like, even if it was just like a short little love story in the playoffs or the end of the season, they really got around him, and that helped their team a lot. Because there were moments where he had to step up, especially in the first round. And if he doesn't step up in those moments, they're not getting anywhere.
I agree.
And then if you let Kyrie come back, then you're gonna just cause more divide, in my opinion, because then people are gonna say, well, we didn't see him play fully healthy, let's give him a shot. But then if Terry gets upset and wants to leave, they're not gonna want Terry to leave. Terry's one of those guys that I think they would want to have around, you know, because of what they already did with him.
So that's why if the Celtics can get a Kawhi Leonard, I think that would be perfect.
It would just be hard for me, I think, to sell them on Hayward. I think they would be fine. I don't know if you could do a Kyrie for Kawhi straight up. I don't know if the money works out. It might. If you could do that, then I would say by all means do that, because you don't even know if Kyrie's going to stay once his contract expires. Because
if I'm the Spurs, though, I'd want Hayward.
You would want Hayward?
Yeah. Just because when he's healthy, he's an 18, 20-point scorer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just would matter if they actually talked. I don't know if that's been their conversation. It probably did at some point, but
yeah. People have been talking about Jaylen Brown getting traded to the Spurs. I think that's a no-go. If I'm the Celtics, I say no to Jaylen Brown.
I don't know why you would. He was one of like the prodigy people, just like everyone didn't understand why they picked Jason Tatum where they picked him. And look how it fit with the team. Like, they clearly knew what they were doing, taking Jaylen after D'Angelo, and people were like, "What the heck? Why would you take Jaylen Brown?" And it's just like, well, he's fit the system. He just fits the Celtics tremendously, in my opinion. But all right, that was very interesting thoughts on the Kawhi scenario. The other free agent I wanted to pick your brain about for a minute was Chris Paul. And in my opinion, my take on the situation, he signs a couple-year deal with Houston to stay with the Rockets, but they pay him $160 million.
That's going to hurt on the backside.
Is Chris Paul even worth that kind of money? Like I understand, like, he's respected as one of the best point guards in the game. You could argue even top 15 maybe in history.
And Chris Paul
at this point in his career specifically, is he worth that for 4 years?
And Chris Paul's defense, though, he's not the first person in the NBA to get overpaid, and he won't be the last one in the NBA.
Right. Yeah, no, that's gonna happen every offseason. But man, injuries and all, like
I think you have to. You can't let him walk. You can't let him walk.
I don't know if I would have been fine if he walked. And honestly, Harden can carry a team by himself. And the only reason I think they're so hard on Chris Paul being there with them is because they still got to re-sign Capella, and they were only super good with those three in the starting lineup. They lost like something crazy, like only like less than 10 games, I think it was, in the regular season when they were all in the starting lineup. But when Chris Paul had issues, when Capella was having an off night or Harden went cold, that team was way different. And now you don't have Trevor Ariza anymore, and he was a good player to have for them last year. You got to think, is Eric Gordon's going to be the same kind of guy for them consistently? Because their ultimate goal is not to beat anybody else. They could do that with just Harden. Their ultimate goal is to take down Golden State. That's been
Chris Paul to be Golden State. They're going to need Chris Paul to be Golden State.
Well, okay, so let's rewind a minute. If Chris Paul was healthy in Game 7 in the conference finals this last playoff season, do you really think Houston wins and they knock off the Warriors the way they were playing?
No.
So what do you think the Rockets are thinking, bringing him back for 4 years? If you had the Warriors,
I don't think the Rockets think that, though.
You think that clearly they think he's worth the money. I'm just thinking, I don't know if that's a fair way for them to look at it.
I think the Rockets believe they're better than the Warriors. If they have their healthy team, they will beat the Warriors. I think the Rockets believe that. I don't believe that.
Right.
I didn't believe that last year. Maybe this year. I think this is the year to take down Golden State. I'm going to find it hard for them to get out the West this year. It is just going to be a grind.
Yeah,
and also depending on who they get, because I've reports about Dwight Howard might come there, Jamal Crawford, just crazy. Like if they get those two, then I might have to rethink it, because that'd just be insane.
Yeah, I think a good place to kind of take the show to the next episode would be. I want to hear your thoughts really quick on who you think is the biggest free agent next summer that's going to make that leap. Do you think someone like Klay Thompson actually leaves? Does Jimmy Butler find a new place? What do you think is going to happen next summer?
I think the Timberwolves are in danger of missing the playoffs next year, so that could cause Jimmy Butler to leave. Klay might leave. I don't know, man. They just winning rings over there, and they having fun over there in the Bay. I find it hard for Klay to leave. I mean, you want to know what? Klay Thompson is Alfred, but you want to know what? He's Alfred, but he making $20 million a year. He's having fun. Everybody loves him, and he winning. So that's a good life for being Alfred.
That's true.
So I just find it hard. I mean.
You don't think, though, he'd be at a point where he'd want to have his own team? Because he's always been – he was second fiddle to Steph already, and then when KD came in, he's kind of third on the – he's like a third target on offense. You don't think he's like at this point, we're like, cool, I've won – what is it now, 3 rings for him? 4 if they win next year of him going into free agency. You know, he's already won 4 times. He's making all that money already. I don't know. I think that's where Magic Johnson's going to try and overdo his thing. He's going to say, well, your dad played for the Lakers. Like, just come and, establish your own legacy and, overdo it like we've done with every free agent that's tried to come to LA or thought about it even a little bit.
Honestly, if you really want to be honest about it, the last 5-6 years, the Warriors technically have been the real Lakers, quote unquote. If you really want to be honest about it.
Yeah, they've been the face of the league. They've been winning titles. Yeah, Magic's going to try and use we have 16. We won 16 titles. Like, I don't know if Klay is going to care about that. I would hope he would leave just so that we can have
KD's, I
something
think,
different other than Warriors in it every year. I get like 3 years in a row, 4 years in a row, maybe you've earned it, right? Working hard for it. But if it gets to the point where it's like fifth, sixth, seventh, it's like, okay, something like, how do we beat these guys? You know
but
what I mean?
here's something I will say about Klay. I don't think Klay's the best person, can be the best player on a championship team. So I think he might get exposed if he's like being a solo act on the Lakers. But to go back to what I said about Paul George and even LeBron James, like criticism's a big thing. When the Warriors don't do well, everybody criticizes Kevin Durant, then it's Steph Curry, then it's Draymond Green.
It's even say Steve Kerr's before anybody else.
Yeah. I mean, so nobody talks about Klay. Nobody talks about Klay. So if I'm glad, Klay doesn't have any reason. I mean, do people not give him the credit he deserves? I mean, everybody that I know says he's one of the best shooters of all time. Everybody says he's one of the best two-way players in the NBA.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. I'm just really curious to see how this chemistry plays out, because you would think at some point the chemistry would crack, because even though the Lakers were winning in the early 2000s, you know, the chemistry with Kobe and Shaq eventually got to a point where it boiled over. Like, forget like they won 3 in a row and they were balling. You know, people couldn't beat them.
Here's what I will say about that. Kobe and Shaq both had very big egos. I don't think Kevin Durant and Steph Curry have very big egos. I actually think Draymond Green and Klay have the biggest egos out of the four of them. So I think in the Lakers scenario, that would be more like if Derek Fisher and Rick Fox were the ones that had the egos, right?
Yeah.
And they were the ones. So I think it's more like that situation. I think Draymond has the biggest ego. And, you know, I mean, nobody pays attention to Draymond. Draymond just likes to talk, right? I think everybody's just like, that's just Draymond.
Yeah, Draymond just likes to try and get in people's heads.
Yeah, and Klay just goes quietly about it like, I'm the best dude out there. I think Klay just goes quietly about it. So I don't know if there's going to be, you know, any problems like that.
Where do you think someone like Jimmy Butler might end up if he doesn't stay in Minnesota?
Los Angeles, maybe?
Like, we gotta put the Lakers in the conversation, no matter who it is. They've been putting him in the conversation for like DeMarcus Cousins. That was one we forgot to talk about. That I guess the Lakers actually had called Cousins like after midnight hit last night, and I don't know how I feel about that. I think
he'd be a good fit for the Lakers.
You think so?
Yeah, I think he'd be a good fit. You
don't think he has an ego though that would clash with LeVar all the time, or even with Lonzo?
I don't think Lonzo has that. Does Lonzo have an ego? Lonzo don't really talk, not unless he's
he has these little spurts. He's not talking all the time, but
not unless he's doing diss tracks. But
yeah, diss track videos. But
I mean, does LeVar really want to mess with Boogie? I mean,
I don't think LeVar is afraid of anybody.
Yeah, but does LeVar want Boogie coming by his house? Because Boogie Cousins would do that.
Thought Magic would set him straight.
Yeah, but to me, Magic's not like Boogie. Like Boogie would put some hands on LeVar. I don't think like Magic's type of guy. Like LeVar could say whatever he wants to Magic, and Magic would be like, "Okay, LeVar, this is what we talked about for the 10,000th time, right?" Boogie really would just be like, "Yo, you want to be in the street?" Like Boogie's that type of guy. So I think I think LeVar might chill with Boogie, because that might turn into something it shouldn't turn into. I could see that one escalating real quick. I think
I would pay to see that. Now you got me thinking of DeMarcus Cousins and LeVar just, you know, fighting at Staples Center instead of a basketball game. We got a boxing match, like on court. LeVar throwing his popcorn and making a huge scene. Oh man, that would be something. I mean, is there any other free agency takeaways that you can think of that we haven't talked about you wanted to bring up?
LeBron James is meeting with the Sixers. I saw a report about that. LeBron's meeting with the Sixers.
After your argument, I think Cleveland does make a lot of sense. I'm still curious about Miami. I don't think people bring that up as much because if family is the focus, right? If LeBron has said himself, his kids is like the determining factor, you'd have to think like, why wouldn't it be either Cleveland, Miami, or LA? That seems like those would be the three that you could argue family for.
Well, actually, I kind of want to push back on that. I think that Cleveland is a nice residential neighborhood to raise your kids. I don't think Miami is the best place to raise your children that are going into high school.
But it's somewhere that's familiar to them, though. It's not just like some random out there town like Philadelphia that they have.
I don't think they weren't living with him in Miami for a long time, though.
Okay. It may just be if he wants to reunite with Dwayne Wade and consider that family, but
yeah. Actually, I find it hard for him to go back to Miami because the thing is, then LeBron can't do whatever he wants in Miami. That's part of the reason why I left the first time.
You think so?
Yeah, Rich. All his boys can, go to team practices. LeBron can't be GM, coach, part-time owner.
Yeah.
Pat Riley's just like, shut up and play basketball. That's what we're paying you to do. I don't think LeBron likes that.
Guess we'll see where he goes. How long do you think before he makes the decision?
July 4th.
July 4th is 4th of July, Independence Day. He's free. Makes a lot of sense.
Lakers or Cavs? I'm leaning Cavs though. Leaning Cavs.
What's interesting is I think Vegas had, I think it was OddsShark. They tried to do like a gamble or a fair wager for where LeBron would go, and the Lakers were like minus 5,000. So you'd have to bet that much money to win anything. So that I think Vegas really thinks it's a Lakers decision, but common sense kind of does tell you Cleveland, based off of like who he is as a player and all the family ties that we were talking about earlier. So only a matter of time before we know the truth.
And now here's the question I want to ask you. How do you think LeBron's going to release this information?
Oh, dang, that's a great decision. It wouldn't. I don't know. I don't think he'd be petty about it. I don't think it would be like some sort of dramatic show like he did before when he last left Cleveland. I wouldn't be shocked if it's just kind of just leaks out. You know what I mean? Someone tells Woj or someone tells Bleacher Report, and then they kind of just do a press conference based on there, and then he explains it from there. Or he does like a tweet. Maybe he puts out a picture of him with the new team that he picks, or pick a picture with Cleveland, like that he's staying home. I wouldn't be shocked if social media kind of plays more of a factor in this decision. Because before it was such a big deal for him to leave the team that drafted him because he grew up there, and there was like a storyline that he could make people watch that, and really be curious where the heck is LeBron going. Now it's just kind of like, okay, just tell us, like just tell us where you're going. We just want to know where you're going.
Just leak it out.
Just leak it out. I mean, why not? Paul George did that. Like, he didn't come out. Yeah, he had that three-day special and everything, but, he didn't come out like not the same way that LeBron did in the past. I think it was a little different. I think Paul George just kind of wanted attention because he knew that he wasn't the biggest fish on the market. So, like,
actually, no, I just thought of something. How about maybe Drake releases a song saying where LeBron's going?
That would be hilarious. That would be just like, wow, you really got creative. You could have.
That sounds like LeBron would do something like that.
He would. I could see that happening because they're good friends, or they at least good acquaintances. Like I could see that happening.
Daddy, got anything else for me, Keith?
That's all I could think of, man. I was really hot about Chris Paul getting that much money from the Rockets, but if you're Chris Paul, you're not going to turn that down. I don't think anybody would, but I think that was just a bad decision on their end. And I'm more than curious at this point, now that we've been 12 hours or so in hangover mode with free agency, where the heck is everybody going? Like, I just want to know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's all for this first episode of the Four Corners podcast. And be sure to catch Daryl and Keith next time, and we'll have plenty to talk about then, as we're sure that a decision for LeBron at the very least will be in play by then. Thanks for watching.
Sure.